Welcome back to the channel, my faithful few. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm glad you're here with me again today. And in this video, we're going to talk about choosing the right video editing software for you. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, become part of the community, and I promise you, I'm going to bring you some added value to you and your content creation. So now, the first thing I want to do is I want to let you know that all video editing software pretty much at the core does exactly the same thing. You know, there are some differences, but those differences usually come in the forms of interface, cost, third-party plug-in capabilities, different camera type capabilities as well. I just want to get you the information that you need so that when you get ready to choose a software, you'll know exactly what to look for you. Now, as far as the user interface, you always want to look at a software that looks like it's where your skill set is right then. You know, go ahead and do some research. Typically, all the softwares, you'll be able to see what the user interface looks like online. Go to the websites, go to the online pages, go check out a few YouTube videos when you want to look at a specific software. Now, if that software looks like the interface is just going to be too complex, there's probably another software that's out there that will kind of, you know, step it down some in terms of degree of difficulty, because everybody's not at the same place. You may need a software where all you need to do is drop a video, put some text on it, add some music. There's plenty of softwares that are out there like that. Also, you want to make sure that the software that you choose is compatible with your computer system at its current state. You don't want to grab a software that when you get home and you get it installed, or you find out that you can't install it because your computer doesn't have enough resources because it's a 3-year-old computer and the software that just came out has these video requirements or the hard drive space requirements or the processor requirements that you just don't meet. So that also will be part of your research. Performance. This is where all softwares are not the same. You need to make absolutely sure that, especially if you're planning on being able to render out some of these high resolution files, because even now a cell phone can render out an 8K video. So if you've got a software that, you know, will allow you to do it, but your computer won't allow you to do it because your video card isn't able or isn't ready right now to be able to match the speed and size of the resolution and also size of the files, then that's something that you want to consider while you're choosing your video software. So now those are pretty much the essentials. Those are the things that you want to make sure that you take into consideration before you get ready to make a selection on the software that's going to work for you for your video editing. Now, third-party plug-in support. Most softwares that you get now today, they'll come with the bare essentials. They'll come with the basic functions of the software, and then there's always something that you can be able to purchase or download or add to be able to give you more functionality within that software. Depending on how you'll be using your video editing software and your particular genre of video, you may or may not have to be able to use those. But what you do want to do is you want to make sure that if there is a third-party plugin that you want to be able to use to do X, Y, and Z, that you do your research to make sure that that software can be able to support X, Y, and Z plugin or any other third-party plugin that you're going to use for your video editing software. Make sure that your computer also meets the requirements, not only of the software, but for that third-party plugin. Make sure you choose a software that there's plenty enough support for you to be able to use outside of what's in the actual owner's manual. There are a ton of user groups that are out there for different software where you can pretty much be guaranteed that somebody's using it, so somebody is talking about how to use it. So we want to make sure that when we're choosing our software, that we've chosen a software where there are resources that can be able to give us assistance to kind of help plug in some of the gray areas or fill in the gaps where we just can't do it on our own. As far as price and budget, I'm pretty sure it goes without saying, don't overextend yourself. There are a lot of good free options, and there are also some paid for options. There are some lifetime ownership options, as well as some subscription options. So look at where you are, see where you can grow. I mean, I always say, you know, crawl before you walk. You can just jump right on in there. At the same time, make sure that you do your research. Once you've done your research and you know that, okay, this software that I want is not going to make me have to go out and purchase a whole brand new computer, or this third-party plugin that I want will work on this software that I'm choosing that won't make me have to go ahead and go out and purchase a brand new computer. Just, do your research, check and make sure. Prices vary. I mean, different programs and different platforms, have different pricing options. You can even check and see if there are trial versions of the softwares, see how the different softwares are not only working with your computer and working with your skill set as a new video editor, but also how it works with your camera footage. So find out which softwares will work for you by using all of these different methods of research, and then you'll be able to make a more informed decision. Make sure that you pay attention to some of the updates in the software. You can see how a software has gone from one level to another level just by looking at some of the updates. Pretty much every update that you get on the software, they're going to list what was changed. I know for me, when I first began, pretty much AI was non-existent. A lot of things, all the way down to masking, was done manually. And so you can look and see how the software is able to keep up with the times, and you can also be able to use that to be able to make your decision. Now that we know what to look for in the video editing software for us, let's look at some actual video editing software. For me, I'm going to start out with the one that I think is probably one of the more expensive ones. And I say that because long term, you'll end up paying more money for it than pretty much any of the other major video editing softwares out there. That's going to be Adobe Premiere. Adobe Premiere is an excellent software. It's widely used. It definitely is one of your more professional industry standard type softwares. It also just happens to be one of the most expensive softwares because there is a long-term subscription that you never really own it. So, I'm imagining and guessing that it pays for the updates, it pays for the access, and you also get the access to all the other Adobe products if you have an Adobe Cloud membership. I do have the Adobe Cloud membership. I just very rarely use Adobe Premiere anymore. Started out using Adobe Premiere once I began to get a little more advanced when I moved on from some of the free platforms. And even a inexpensive paid for platform, Adobe Premiere was one that I went to. I just ended up having some other issues after I was able to learn what to look for and how to do my research, which is the platform that I did move down to, which was DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve, at the time, it actually ended up getting me out of a bad spot. I had a project that I kept getting errors on in Adobe Premiere, and I went to DaVinci Resolve. I was able to render it out. The learning curve wasn't so great at the time that it stopped me from making progress, and I was able to actually render my product. And so once I was able to render the product out, I got good results, I was hooked. For me, that was the selling deal. Now, on the other side of that, it was the free version. DaVinci Resolve has a free version and they have a paid for version. At the time, I was using the free version. I just needed to put some videos together, run them together, throw some music and text on it, and export them. Fast forward a little time, and DaVinci Resolve just flat out blew up. And for me, it was always kind of, I started out with Adobe Premiere, so I'm going to stay with it. I just needed it for that one project. But I was able to use DaVinci Resolve with the current computer that I had pretty much error-free. Now, once I began to get into color grading, it was a wrap for me. And I really enjoy it. I always recommend it. And it comes with so many other platforms. If I didn't need Photoshop, I probably wouldn't have Adobe. Adobe's a great company. They make great products. I still use them to this day, but because I do more video, I'm gonna probably have to rank it as my number one as far as a paid for deal. Now, they do have a free one, and they also have a paid for version. The difference between the paid for version for DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere is that the studio version of DaVinci is the paid for version. There is a one-time cost, but after that you have a lifetime license. See, it just made sense for me. And I'll get into that a little more here later. Now, Final Cut. Final Cut is a program that is for Mac users. You can use Final Cut if you have the Mac OS system. And for me, because a lot of what I did early on was on iMovie when I was really just kind of getting into things, you would think that would have been the easiest transition for me because I was very good with using iMovie. And then to see Final Cut, there were just a few other things because I was using it on the iPad. And then once I actually got a MacBook, I just didn't use it. paid for it. It just never really used it. Well, at the time, I believe it came with my MacBook, and I just never really used it. I tried to use it because I also had a Nikon, and with this Nikon, if you were shooting with the Atomos, you could record in ProRes RAW. The only issue was that at that time, Adobe Premiere could not use the ProRes RAW file format. DaVinci Resolve could not use the ProRes RAW file format. So as a result, I didn't get a chance to really utilize shooting in RAW with the Atomos combined with the Nikon camera. So that's what played an extremely pivotal role in me switching over to DaVinci. I was able to use DaVinci without any issue or error. I was also able to get DaVinci and pay for it one time. Then once I went to the Blackmagic camera and I had this Nikon ProRes file, I could still use both cameras, and also I was able to do all of my edits right in DaVinci. DaVinci doesn't do the ProRes RAW, but it will do ProRes. So ultimately, I ended up having to make a decision. And because of my own camera ecosystem, I ended up basically getting out of the Nikon, going with Canon. So I'm able to use my Canon files, my Blackmagic RAW files, or my ProRes files, all in DaVinci. Another Mac OS system video editing program is iMovie. I started out using iMovie and a program called Magix, but iMovie is another program that is free. So you can get iMovie, you can use it on your cell phone, you can use it on your MacBook, and it gives you those core basic video editing software fundamentals that we talked about. You know, being able to import video, being able to use photo, being able to add music, being able to add text. There are some transitions and some basic essential video editing features in there, but for the most part, it's free. You can use that to even train yourself and get yourself where you need to go before you get ready to go on to the next step. But that's all, guys. I wanted to bring this video to you because so far up to this point, we've chosen a camera, we've learned the settings on our camera, we've also learned how to shoot, we've learned how to expose, we've learned different lenses, we've also learned how to get different shooting angles, and so now you've got all this practice footage. It's time to start learning how to work your way around the video editing platform. So hopefully this video has brought some added value to you and your content creation. If it has, consider subscribe. I'd love to see you as part of the community. Drop me a comment if you have a question. If you have a question, I'll get back with you. I absolutely love it when there is engagement on the post because it allows me to be able to connect. And who knows, I mean, I love learning from other people as well. So I'll tell you what, drop me a comment, hit that subscribe button. We're about to go in.